all I've got is some general questions that people have asked me and I can't answer correctly. Are you guys doing any blasting?
Yes.
You are. Okay. These are questions people ask me and I don't know how to answer. Maybe you can't even answer. Because of the blast, now, there was a thing on Duluth News. They did a 5-year survey of iron ore taconite mines in Minnesota. They found out that the surrounding area, some of the people in the surrounding area and the miners were self. A lot of them, because of the taconite dust, got this lung cancer, Mesothelioma, whatever it is. And this was a 5-year study, I think, done by the university over there. Are you guys aware of any of this at all?
First off, one of the tests that Tim talked about, it's the microscopic, right?
Microscopic.
The microscopic test that we talked about, which would be done on every layer of rock. One of the things that the microscopic test would find is if there were such a thing, if there were those types of fibers present in the ore body, and then those would have to be dealt with accordingly. Is the first part of the answer. So prevention is always the answer, and that means find out what's going on. This is testing that's required in Wisconsin and isn't required in Minnesota. But then there's, I think, Bill, you're aware of some of the...
You've got one mine that's next to a volcanic intrusion called the Duluth Complex. It's the North Shore Mine, which is the highest one closest to the lake on the east side. That's the only one that's ever experienced these asbestos-like fibers. The majority of the people that they identified with these problems were not the people working in the pits with the exposure to the blast dust, but they're the ones that were working in the shops as millwrights. 1948, when this went in, what did they use to insulate piping throughout a shop?
Asbestos.
Okay, add 20, 25 years to it, they got to start replacing leaks and whatnot. Who's doing that? The millwrights. We didn't know anything about it back in the 60s or 70s. So these are some of the results that have come out of these studies. The University of Minnesota completed one in 2008. And that's one of the findings they found, is that they suspect that most of those cancers were caused to the millwrights, and not so much from the pit, but from working with the asbestos insulation that was put in the 40s.
In other words, the blasting in the pits in Minnesota, and the blasting up here, the minimal particles that would get up in the atmosphere from the blasting, your guys are saying that this isn't the reason that this taconite dust has caused cancer in the people in Minnesota.
That's correct.
Okay.
First, it requires the presence of those fibers.
Okay, these are questions I'm asked, I just want to know.
I worked in the taconite plants in Minnesota several years, and mesothelioma was mentioned, which I think if you're going to have people working in the plants or the mine pit, you should be concerned. And the reason I speak up is because I went to a presentation about 10 days ago. The Minnesota Department of Health came to Mountain Iron, Minnesota, and told us about their study on mesothelioma. Now, we heard a GTac representative say tonight that it was the people in the plant and not in the pit that got mesothelioma. Now, I sat through that whole study and I listened, because I spent years, I'm worried about my lungs. I never heard them say that, and I don't believe it's true. That study is not complete yet. I believe you should follow up on that information and see what the facts are. I know my neighbors have not only mesothelioma, they have silicosis, they have lung cancer, and I know this because I go to the funerals. And I should add that I'm not just a troublesome outsider. The reason I came over here is because I worked on the little electrical substation on the edge of town several years ago. My wife taught in your school. She substitute taught for a few weeks while we were here. She loves your kids and your teachers, but I don't love mining, so thank you.